17th, beginning at 6 p.m. here at Frederick School. I need a call to order. A roll call, please.
Mack.
Here.
Braden. Absent. Nash.
Present.
Albert.
Present.
LaCroix.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
And Weedman.
Here. Okay, please join me for the pledge. Okay, I need a motion to approve this evening's agenda, please.
I'll move. I'll second.
Okay.
Miller.
Aye.
Mack.
Aye.
Albert.
Aye.
Weedman.
Aye.
LaCroix.
Aye.
And Nash.
Aye.
Okay, very good. The agenda is approved. We are at the public comment portion of the evening's meeting. We do have 3 individuals joined us tonight for the public comment. I'm going to go in order as you signed up on the list. First, we have Savannah Mix.
Good evening. There we go. First of all, thank you to the board for giving us the opportunity to speak today. My name is Savannah Mix, and I'm one of the band directors at Frederick School. The reason we are here today is to share our recent recruitment success and the positive impact it will have on the other schools, as well as some scheduling challenges we are encountering for this upcoming school year in the hopes of providing awareness and future collaboration. We would hope that we could have given a full presentation to the board that was requested July 2nd, but we would love to share the data that we have and answer any questions you may have. Our numbers at Frederick pre-COVID, our beginning band numbers ranged anywhere from 130 to 180 students, with our total band program being 5th and 6th grade, ranging around 300 total students. The retention rate of students going from 5th to 6th grade averaged out to be about 82%. With the COVID-19 pandemic, there is an evident decline in both our recruitment and our total band numbers and our retention numbers. Our beginning band numbers dropped to 55 students, and our total band program dropped to 150 total students, which is about half. We are very, very happy to share that this year we have a beginning band recruitment class of 182, with our total band program reaching 280 plus total students. Our retention rate is back up to 82%. So why is this important? There is typically a 10 to 20% drop off in retention when students change buildings. So going from Frederick School to GMS and GMS on to high schools. Therefore, it is crucial to keep the largest retention of band students as possible in order for the middle school and high school programs to continue to thrive. So a common question we get is, why are there 3 of us here? This year, as well as pre-COVID years, we are approaching 300 students in the band, which would give us a student-to-teacher ratio of 90 to 100 per teacher. While there are other subjects that have a very large student-to-teacher ratio, such as band at GMS or a PE teacher, the difference is those teachers and subjects, while having their own challenges, have a base edifice to work from. PE students already know basic skills like how to run and jump. Middle school band students already know how to open their case, assemble their instrument, produce a sound, and read music. In 5th grade band, students have no prior knowledge of how to put together, hold, and play their instrument. Students will therefore have the best success on their instrument when taught in a classroom of the same instrument group with individualized time with their instructor. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Ms. Jeanette Johnson.
Good evening. Hi. As previously stated, my name is Jeanette Johnson, and I'm one of the other band directors here at Frederick School. I'm continuing the conversation started by Savannah by presenting some of the challenges we may encounter if we are needed to travel to GMS for 2 of their general music classes. Instrument classes might need to combine. So combining instruments is not the best practice when learning a new instrument. This was presented as a possible solution to us. However, we view it more as a challenge in regards to our program's integrity. Learning a specific instrument and reading music is essentially learning a foreign language, but in this scenario, it would be like French and German being taught at the same time. All instruments have different note names, different finger placements on the instrument, and different ways to produce the musical sound itself. When instructional time is divided between instruments, students receive less individual instruction time on their specific instrument. Instructional time continues to lessen as you add different instrument groups, thus not being able to differentiate instruction based on instrument sections, if not all of us full-time at Frederick. The next challenge that we may encounter, there would be 3 different schedules that could cause a couple conflicts. There being a 5th grade schedule, a 6th grade schedule, and then a 7-8. On days with IAR testing, MAP testing, late starts, assembly days, sick days, and band contests are some of those examples. With all of these irregular schedules spread across 4 grades total, it will inevitably result in classes not being covered due to difficulty in finding music substitutes. In regards to beginning band scheduling, 5th grade wings would be inequitable due to losing a staff member to GMS during that time. So for example, one wing would be offered 6 different instrument classes while the other would be only offered 4. And the less classes offered leads into combining instruments, which is not best practice. Band teachers will also lose sense of community and ownership of Frederick School by being pulled out of morning, afternoon duties, committees, and building meetings. We can no longer participate in student-teacher bonding programs such as check-in, check-out, and building meetings. I do want to thank Amy Gluck and Dr. Glickman for sending out a survey to the family members of the community who are interested in choir. This survey will see if students are interested in changing choir to before school, which would allow them the opportunity to participate in the encore rotation, along with solving and scheduling issues in 5th grade beginning band Frederick School. Not only would this be the best solution for scheduling, but it would also allow the new general music teacher to cover all classes necessary within their day and begin building relationships with students that they will see for 2 years.
Thank you. And Amy Forrest is our 3rd public comment.
Hi, I'm Amy Forrest. I am not a band teacher. I am a math teacher at GMS, and I'm also the treasurer of our union. I was on the 5-8 PDT committee and have been working a lot with Amy Gluck with just, all of these new changes and helping to also provide some solutions. So we are very grateful for the survey that just went out because we feel that it'll also provide some more data to help us with understanding some of the challenges. And we just have a few other solutions here. And now because I'm old, I'm gonna go like that. Possibility of creating 2 new part-time positions, 1 position that would teach the morning general music class and then be a permanent sub in the afternoon. 1 position to sub in the morning then and teach the afternoon class. We could offer a compensated opportunity for elementary general music classes, music teachers to cover the 2 GMS general music classes. 1 teacher could cover the first period of the day in lieu of their morning office hours, and then another teacher could cover the last period of the day in lieu of the afternoon office hours. If the schedule remains unchanged, we could review the current schedule and its impact with feedback from the PDT, community, and board in an effort to affirm what worked well and what can be approved. And we can look at the current schedule as it is now and find a way to have choir meet during the day if that is what the community desires, similar to how Wind Ensemble aligns with 7th and 8th grade students with no extra music class coverage being needed. We just want to thank you again, board, for letting us share these celebrations, the challenges, and some possible solutions, and just try to have the best impact on student learning across all subjects. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing the comments with us this evening. Should we have any questions or comments, we will reach out through the superintendent. We're going to move on to the presentations that are scheduled for this evening. We have 2 energy conservation presentations, the solar energy options and the classroom lighting options.
Hello again. Thank you for having me back. My name is Kurt Hintz. Again, I'm the Business Development Manager for Performance Services and I've been associated with the account for many years. Still see a lot of familiar faces and see some new faces, so. Chris asked me to basically update kind of where things were and look at the last remaining buildings that don't have solar yet. And what's great about solar is every time we look at it, things change. I gave a presentation in March and then gave basically the same presentation again to the same district last week with all new information. And so the good thing is, on almost every regard, things are getting better and continue to getting better. There have been a few changes, which we'll discuss, but overall, there's again a real opportunity here for the district to consider. So Meadowview is obviously one of the larger sites still available. Looking at the system size and the shape and the different angles and slopes that we have to deal with, we can't cover that roof to the max, but we would get about a 76% offset of the electrical costs, which is rather impressive in terms of just that only using south-facing sloped roofs. So again, there's more space up there, but we don't have the impact if we're not on the south-facing slope. And by the way, please interrupt me if you have any questions at all. I know it's no problem. This would be about a little over 300 kW system, and again, it would offset quite a bit of the electrical costs in the district. Some large rebates, which we've talked about before. The ComEd Smart Inverter rebate is still available, and that, for anybody that doesn't remember, is $250 per kilowatt produced. So it's a very simple calculation, but that's over $75,000 of actual cash in a nice large check sometimes that they'll present. You guys have received that in the past. The SRECs have changed a little since last time we talked. They actually went down a little bit. Program itself is still the same, but overall the value changed fractions of pennies. In the grand scheme of things, it's very small, but overall the value went down just a tiny bit. But in this case, in 6.25 years, you'd be looking at just under $260,000 of SREC income. And then what's great is the IRA, which we have mentioned before, but that is that tax credit. It is in place. Districts have filed for it. It is through filing like your normal taxes, which you don't file, so this is a whole new program. And a lot of districts have gotten the help of outside tax councils and things, which we can steer you. But in this case, at 30%, you're looking at almost $360,000 as a tax credit. There is a chance, and I caution because we always want to be conservative, that could even increase up to 40%, which in case of these projects would lower the payback period by a couple years. Now, there are some counties identified in Illinois that qualify potentially for this. They're calling it a bonus. There isn't anything that we've seen yet, and that's why I'm cautioning, but I'm mentioning the fact that it is possible. Typically, we'll stick with what we know, but this information is out there and it is available. We just don't know exactly who's qualifying and how it's going to go. But again, overall payback period roughly for Meadowview is about 15 years, and the main reason for that is we know we're going to have mechanical attachments and we're going to have some extra work that's needed, kind of like we've had to do on the other sloped roofs. There's your incentive, there's your payback. Now that's kind of probably hard to read, but I believe you all would have this in a packet and see. And again, this is based on budget numbers still, right? We would still have to budget, we'd still have to bid this, design it. We still would need structural evaluation. So this is just what we think at this moment, but this is also based on what we think and we know from all the other projects that were currently just bid. So we have a pretty good idea of what these numbers are going to look like. The other next building is Woodview. So again, this is about, and I'm sorry, I should have started with it. That's a little over, that's like basically 1.2 million roughly as a budget cost for Meadowview. Woodview's a little under $1 million, or just basically call it $1 million. Now, this gets up to almost 100% of the building's utility costs. The reason being, again, it's much flatter roof, so we can fit more panels. The system size, just based on the building, is still only 283 kW, but that will almost get you to that full 100% offset, which is great. Same as before, huge rebate incentives opportunities, so $70,000 in the ComEd rebate, almost $260,000 in the rec income, and then another large ITC credit, which is that 30% tax credit, and that's, again, just under $300,000. You add that together, you're 63% roughly of the project costs just come back in those, and then you still get the energy savings as well to offset utility bills. This project would come in roughly, at the moment, still again budgeted, at about 12-year payback. If we were able to secure, and the district was able to secure the 40% bonus, that payback would go down into the 9-year range. So also very, very good opportunity. And then last, of course, is Avon. Here's the 12-year payback and then the incentive. So again, very close, roughly $1 million project. Almost 90% of the building utility costs would be able to come off. It's a combination of a lot more south-facing sloped roofs to maximize, plus the building's much smaller than Meadowview. So we would be at, again, almost 90% of your utility costs offset at about a 259, 260 kW system. 63% of the project costs, again, would go away just between the SREC income, the IRA, and which is the tax credit, and the ComEd rebate. So another almost $65,000 in rebate, $280,000 plus in rec income, and again, $310,000 for the IRA incentive. If that project also got the bonus 40% to 40%, then that would bring that one down into the 9 range as well. So for solar, we're looking for anywhere from that, 15, back in the day before the ITC credit, we were definitely hoping for 15 to 17 years, and we've gotten better than that, and these are all below that. Again, Meadowview is right at that 15 right now, but this is still budgeted, and I want to make sure we always stress that. If structural came back positive and we could fit some more panels, we would. That typically doesn't happen, though. We typically end up losing some. And in your case, we've had to add mechanical attachments in the past, but I haven't heard any issues with any of the roofing, and we obviously are monitoring that as well. So, questions?
I know when we were putting the solar panels on or out initially, you said technology changes pretty quickly with the panels.
Yeah.
How much more energy do these save versus like the ones we put on to begin with?
Great. So yes, that is a good question. So I believe, and I don't have it sitting in front of me, but most of the panels that we put on were still in the 380 range. Maybe we did 405s. These are 585s. So as of 2 months ago, we were still getting 480s, no problem. We are not getting 480s anymore. We basically had to go back through every design that we had done, projects that hadn't closed where we had already purchased the panels, and we had to re-update. They changed the size of the panel a little bit, so we had to adjust with some of the racking, and that's where some of the differences come in. But the panel continued to grow and increase in wattages, and so how rapidly, I can't say that if we talked again in 6 months that they wouldn't be over well into the 600s. But right now, what's available at the best price is the 585s that we can get. And this is based on that panel.
That's all I got for right now.
Yeah, roughly, there's over 500 panels that we would put on Meadowview. Woodview would be 480 plus, and then at Avon, we were looking at another almost 450. So a couple thousand panels roughly, or just under. And that's made up a big difference in terms of the energy savings is the larger wattage panels.
So I have a question about the life cycle of the panels. Is it true that they have about a 20-year life cycle still, or has that changed?
No, so what happens in 20 years is you get a production warranty. You get
Okay.
25 years from now, those panels should still be, and what you've put on, still be producing 80% of what was predicted.
Okay.
The panels themselves will last really, not saying forever, but panels that were produced the first few, 60, 70, 80 years ago, are still producing. Now, they're not producing nearly at the rate that they first were, and they're not producing nearly what they are now because the new technology's gotten so much better.
Sure.
But how they make the panels and what they're made of is still the same material. So if you do nothing and just leave it, you're still gonna keep producing year after year after year, long after most of us are out of the district. If you decide that you want to in the future, there is a secondary market, and there are people that are always looking for seasoned panels, and there is brokers out there buying and selling panels all the time. Not saying that's what the district would do, but you always would have that option, and obviously, yes, if the panel wattages continue to grow at the rate at which they're growing, it may be something in the, long term to consider. But right now, you have nothing to worry about. Those panels are producing and working great. Based on even the last time, was that March or February when I was here, just talking about what the system's already produced.
Okay, so there's a secondary market, but you don't have an extended producer arrangement where you would take them back?
We do not want them, and you still owe 15 years of producing solar just to cover the SRECs that you're getting
Sure,
now.
Sure.
So at a minimum, they have to stay there for that.
Okay,
But no, we're in the solar market in terms of the energy, helping the districts with that and the engineering aspect, but
but after that, you're good. Okay,
Yep.
just clarifying.
No.
Okay, and then you had talked about technology increasing. Is there any possibility of having batteries so that we can store some of that electricity and use it for EV busing, which seems to be of interest to Illinois, or for cloudy days, or?
The absolute short answer is 100% yes. We are still looking into that. We actually, a neighboring district has asked us to, because they've already received a huge grant for 5 buses, so we'll be putting in some charging stations and helping figure out how the solar will interact with that, as well as battery storage is prevalent. It's still very cumbersome. Where are you going to put large batteries, and you have to store these batteries? So we haven't figured that all out yet, but it is something that I have a really good engineering group. I am not an engineer. I couldn't even play one on TV, but they will have, and they are good at finding the information, and so more is coming, and that is one of the things that we as a group have talked a lot about, is being able to bring the battery storage back. Now, the one thing that you have to consider is most of your buildings are close to that 100% threshold, and ComEd, once you get there, they're not giving you extra money to keep taking money, taking it off the grid. So you would be doing ComEd a favor, and you wouldn't get the benefit. So there's a give and take that we have to kind of look at. Where it really makes sense, some of the large high schools, where the footprint is much smaller and their consumption is so much higher than what yours is. So,
Thank you.
yep.
I'm not sure I understand what we just talked about as far as the transfer, putting energy on the grid versus storing it in a battery. I do remember when we initialized the solar project, we talked about on any given day or any short enough period of time, you would talk about energy generated versus energy consumed at a building, and whatever wasn't consumed but was produced would go on the grid, and it would get metered out and metered in and all that stuff. It's been a long time. I don't remember all the specifics, but why would a school district want a battery on site versus just letting the extra energy flow on the grid? I'm not sure I understand the economics of it or the mechanics of it either.
Yeah, again, I can give you some very high level. The battery storage is more for, I believe there's an opportunity to do some of it for power outages. But I also know that it's for the times when you're not producing enough and you're using your own that you've stored. It is very similar to overproducing in the summer, sending it back to the grid, and then catching back up where the meters are now spinning forward, where they were spinning back, like right now, they'd be spinning backwards. But if you aren't at 100% threshold, then you have an opportunity, without putting more panels on or finding new space that most districts don't have, you put in the batteries as backup, and that's kind of what they're there for.
No, that's starting to make a little more sense. Thank you. I also remember from the initial conversations we had about it, some discussion about where these panels were produced in the world. At the time, I think you were lamenting the fact that most of them were coming from China at the time and that there was some geopolitical risk associated with that. Is that still true? Is that still predominantly where all the panels are made?
I would say for sure overseas, China is definitely one of the largest producers. I know Japan a lot too, and in Asia in general. We have done what we can as a solar group to utilize American-made panels. There are a lot of factories here that are taking the foreign panels and finishing them off here and trying to use that as, say, American-made, but they're really technically not. Part of the old ITC credit when it first came out was to get a bonus or to stay at the 30% threshold, you had to use all American-made parts. They realized that was not even possible because a lot of the components are still coming from overseas. The short answer is there are no available American-only made panels right now. Anybody that says they can get them, those aren't tier 1 panels. We wouldn't put anything but a top-notch tier 1 panel that's been UL tested and through all the ratings. So I'm not saying that you couldn't get a fully American-made panel, but that might be out of Bob's garage that he's just doing on the side, and I don't know if that's what the district would look at. We have identified some really good panel manufacturers, and they are all local, but none of them are actually producing the full panels here, so.
Are you aware of any like national legislation that is incentivizing American-made panels? And it might be a little out of your milieu, but
The ITT credit was for a while, but they've kind of gone, they've lowered their language about how much has to be. A lot more into using union work that has, interns. So bringing new people into the business and teaching them from the ground up. That's more important right now than the full-on American-made. A lot of what we use is, we'll use as much as we can, but we're also very price conscious as well. And some of the fully, developed projects here, products here are a little more cost prohibitive. But that being said, and what I wanted to finish with is there are tariffs that are coming again. And so what is that going to look like, and what is that going to do to the solar market and the panel pricing and things? We don't know for sure. We have a pretty good backstock of panels where we sit right now. We have a kind of we made a commitment without having to prepay with a large manufacturer that we would commit to purchasing this amount over the next so many years. I don't have all the details because I'm not in operations either, but I know that we've identified a lot of the future issues because we see the market's not changing. Solar is getting it's even getting better, and more districts are moving forward. But we anticipate that there could be some changes, right? I mean, we have a big election coming up. Politics aside, either way, there could be some changes, so we want to be as prepared as we can be.
I have one more, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So as it relates to the last bullet on each of these sites, structural still to be evaluated, right? Yes. 2 of these buildings that you are showing us the estimates for are older buildings. Mm-hmm. You said you weren't aware of any particular issues with any of the roofs, but what are some of the things that you could encounter upon evaluating the roof that would significantly impact the cost of a project? And that would require, I think you used the word racking differences. Yeah. Would there be any infrastructure upgrade needed to the roof itself to support the weight, those kind of things? Is there a chance that the cost could deviate from what we see here?
I think we've identified a proper budget. That being said, there could be maybe a few things here and there. I hate going forward telling you it's gonna be one thing and coming back with something totally different. So we have talked as a group and a team. Frederick was a great example of roof that had a ton of wood built into the structure that we did not know. We couldn't put panels on a wood structure. So your point of the older buildings that are still made of wood, we can't put solar on that. We think we've identified those areas. In other areas, we had to put mechanical attachments, and that's where it's basically a four-prong plate that holds the panel racking system in place. It's warranted before and warranted after. Knock on wood, we haven't had any issues with any of the sites that we've put mechanical attachments in. We try to avoid it as much as possible, and the way we always approach it is we will let you know what the system size looks like if we use it and if we don't use it, and then the district can make a choice. But depending on, these aren't big systems to begin with, just based on the footprint that's available, but they are offsetting a lot of solar. So we have to kind of give and take and look and see where does it make sense energy savings wise, or maybe it doesn't, and maybe you're still getting enough savings. So we'll be very proactive with the district in making sure that we're all making the right decision. Yep.
Jess, you didn't have one, right? I'm not speaking over you, okay. Just one more.
This is great.
I think you said that you're training interns, and maybe I'm projecting and making this up, but could you tell us more about that?
We actually have trained some interns internally, but I was actually talking about in the electrical contractors in the Union House. Part of the program is that they hire like fresh, new. The word is an intern though, and I'm blanking this. Apprentice. Thank you. I knew you had my back. Thank you. Apprentice. So as long as they're hiring apprentices, which our partners always do, and that's how they continue to grow their solar workforce. We've done almost 30 megawatts of solar in the last few years just in this area, which these are this is less than a megawatt total for these projects. So if you multiply that by a lot, we've kept a lot of people busy, and so the more apprentices that they were bringing in was really good. So we've always been a proponent of it, and the ITC and the IRA was using that as one of the components, making sure that we are meeting that. And so there's a whole incentive program. Our intern that we hired became our full-time rebate and incentive. We're calling him a guru now because he is helping everybody, and he has got all the answers, and he's newly out of college, and he's been a huge asset to us. So
Nice, wonderful, thank you.
Yep.
It makes me think about instruction, and so I feel like maybe we've had this conversation, so I apologize if we already know the answer, but I've seen in some schools, there are connections between the solar panels and the smart boards in the building, so the kids can actually watch the energy, and it serves as a STEM instructional tool. Is that something on our radar or available to us?
It's absolutely available through the smart inverters that we put in. If we need to have George or one of the guys come out and help IT and Chris and get that set up, it can be one of the things that either is on your website or throughout the boards, and it'll just give you live looks and updates and stuff. Yep.
Okay. Not in the hallways, though, on the website.
It's on the website, yeah.
Yeah.
Great, perfect,
Yep.
thank you, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, and going straight to you again, right?
Yep.
For the classroom lighting.
No, actually, it's going to Scott.
Scott. You're off the
Wonderful.
hook.
Thank you. Well,
Thank you.
we can talk about it. Hey.
I was trying.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much for having me again. Thanks for the apprentice thing. I couldn't. No worries, brother. I got you. Appreciate it.
Good to see you. So we ready to go? All right. I hope that you find my presentation illuminating. Yeah. Just wanted to see if you were awake, okay? So,
You used to say Mr. Gonky is my dad, not anymore.
yeah. Yeah. So, since I've been here, one of the things that I've really noticed about the classrooms in particular is the fluorescent lighting. And a lot of it is in really poor condition. And what you need to know about fluorescent lighting is as soon as it's charged with power, it starts losing lumen capabilities, right? So it's dimming all the time. And when you go into some of these classrooms, they are very dim. So we're going to talk a little bit about classroom environment. But first, I guess what we're supposed to talk about is where this fits in the mission. And I'm going to say it's empowering learners by improving educational spaces, right? So under the strategic plans and goals and the board policy, what I'm going to talk about tonight is covered under these categories. You guys already know the policies. I don't need to repeat them. So what can LED lighting conversion do for this district? Just like solar, it can reduce energy costs. It does meet the new Illinois energy codes. You can purchase it through a co-op, the Omnia co-op. You don't need an architect. This is pretty straightforward. These fixtures that I'm going to show you are just a simple replacement. It will definitely reduce maintenance costs, and we'll talk more about that later. It's going to eliminate waste, the amount of spent bulbs and ballast that go out of here every year, and we'll talk about more about that as well. And again, it's going to improve your educational environment. And the ROI, or return on your investment, for these is very short. So I talked about spent tubes. This is one of 3 pallets that are in the district. You cannot throw these in the garbage. They contain mercury. They have to be collected and disposed of by a proper company, and we're working on getting those out of there right now. We've had them here, and we will get them shipped out before school starts. So this fixture is, it's called an Evo kit. So when you look up here on the ceiling, these are 2x4 troffers. And the good thing about this kit is you get to keep the can or the troffer. You're going to remove the lens or this parabolic lens, all of the bulbs, the ballast cover, and probably the ballast as well. And it's as simple as 1, you put the 2 ends inside of the troffer. 2, you put the new light bar and the side panel in. 3, you put the new lens on and the other panel, and you're done. It takes about 10 to 20 minutes per fixture to do this. Each one of these fixtures has its own sensor, so it does daylight harvesting, occupancy, and it has the capability to talk to each individual fixture. And you could come in and program these and tune them according to the space. So again, it senses daylight harvesting. It'll automatically dim the light fixture. It has occupancy sensor, so when people leave the room, all the lights will shut off in about 15 minutes. So over at GMS during the restoration project, I talked, the company Philips is the manufacturer of the Evo kit. I asked them to come in and do 1 room as a kind of a beta test site, and they graciously agreed to do that at no cost. So they put 12 fixtures into this classroom. So this was a before picture. This is after. This is the back part of the classroom. And I apologize for the blurriness of this, but this is after. And this is kind of half of it done and half of it not. And you can clearly see the difference in the quality of the lighting between fluorescent and LED. The other thing about fluorescent tubing is it has kind of a strobing effect to it. And if you go in some of the classrooms, you're going to see covers on them because especially kids that are on the autism spectrum are very sensitive to that. LED does not have that, so you could eliminate all that as well. So these are wireless switches. They work off of kinetic energy, so they work off actually the energy of you using them. you'll see a double switch on this. One side is a simple on and off. The other side is what's called a scene switch. So if you have a presentation end of the classroom, you hit the scene switch, and what that does is it drops the presentation end 100% and dims the rest of the classroom 50%, or whatever you want to program it to. So really good for reducing the glare and everything on the BenQ screens as well. So let's talk a little bit about a building example, and this is GMS. So this is just classrooms. You could include the hallways, you could include the office areas, you could include the gyms and the cafeteria, but this is just classrooms, because we're talking about the educational environment, right, and improving that. So 54 classrooms and 603 fixtures. You can see the cost of the fixtures there and the cost of the installation. And then the ComEd incentives pretty much cover more than half of the installation cost. The company that's doing the installation will fill out all the grant applications for the district and send them in. Last year, the district spent $24,500 on fluorescent tubes. By putting in LED lighting, you now are eliminating that purchase. So your total investment into this is about $82,000, $83,000. Also savings, further savings, not indicated in that number, include the maintenance of labor. The cost of that person having to go up and down the ladder and change the ballast in the tubes, which in this district is a lot if you're spending $25,000 on tubes every year, right? Another school, Park, has over 2,000 fixtures in that building alone. So disposal and the cost of the spent tubes, it's going to cost the district about $6,000 to get rid of those 3 pallets of tubes that are sitting here now. And then obviously the annual energy savings that you're going to have from electricity. When I looked at the worksheet for Grays Lake Middle School, a lot like what Kurt was talking about, the savings on the kilowatt hours was by more than half changing it to LED. And so obviously the annual energy savings will continue in perpetuity. And then the return on your investment is actually less than 3 years. So, any questions, comments, considerations? Sure.
Thanks for the presentation, Scott.
Sure.
So I'm going to apologize in advance for not using the appropriate vernacular, but I know you'll get what I'm saying.
Okay.
So one of the things that you talked about was like the lighting effect. You compared and contrasted like old versus new. And to me, it looks like it's better for the eyes. And I know eye health is a big deal considering our kids are on the Chromebooks all day. Is it like infused with some type of maybe like blue light technology to kind of just further aids? I don't know if that's the right word, but is there something that with that lighting is further aiding and offsetting like the screen light? And does that make sense?
Yeah, so, but I think what you're talking about actually comes from the screen, the computer screen itself, not from the ceiling lighting, right?
But I guess my question is, are there any added benefits of that lighting in the classroom, recognizing that the kids are on their one-to-one devices?
Well, the only thing that I could answer to specifically is, again, that strobing effect, difference between fluorescent and LED.
Okay.
The LED is such a cleaner light, and I've done this in 2 districts now. I've done this same Evo kit. I did it in Lincolnshire when I was there, and they still continue to do it after I left. I did it in East Main 63, and my first test site for them was I did their administrative office, which was, the lighting was absolutely horrible. So I did the administrative office and I did the boardroom, and when the board came for the meeting, they were just blown away. And it was so bright that the staff that was working in the administrative office said, "Can you turn it down?" So we actually had to program it to drop it to about 80% because it was just, they're just not used to the brightness of it.
Yeah.
So, and you could do the same thing in the classrooms as well.
Got it. Thank you. Two more quick ones. I know you said with regards to the sensors, it sounds like it has a lot of technology embedded in it. You know, fingers crossed and heels click, right? We don't have any roof issues going forward. But with all that technology, are there any like protective mechanisms built in those sensors to help protect in the unfortunate event something were to happen by way of water or something else?
Yeah, so the troffer itself will protect it, right? So that is a solid box, rectangle of metal all the way around. So I can't foresee any problems with it at all.
Okay.
So in 2012 in Lincolnshire, I did a complete building inside and out with LED. It was the first school in the state of Illinois to convert completely to LED. And in that 12 years, not one fixture was touched.
Okay, excellent. And then my last question is just with regards to the disposal fee, do we get any type of rebate or financial money coming back just from the appropriate disposal of
Yes.
these fixtures? Okay.
Yeah, I asked the disposal company that question. Actually, the disposal company that the district used in the past went out of business, so we had to kind of scramble to find a new place, and they do not offer an incentive, at least not at this time.
Okay. Thanks, Scott.
Sure.
I realize it was probably a short time that you were able to do that beta test in GMS.
Yes.
But is there any feedback from staff and students with the different
Absolutely.
lighting?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Can you
yeah.
share some of that? Or?
Well, from the principal, he says, when can we get the rest of the building done? And the teacher that was in that space really loved it, and the teachers that were around that space said, when can we get our classrooms done? So, which was a similar thing, response that I had when I was in Lincolnshire. Because I did like 3 or 4 beta test classrooms because I wanted them to kind of show it off and let the other teachers see how it functions. And I tried to pick teachers that were a little bit on the techie side. And it was the same response. When can we get the rest of the classrooms done? So.
I have a follow-up question to that. For the non-techie teacher, how simple is it to learn how to change or program it to be whatever
If you can
kind
turn a
of
light
lighting they
switch on
want?
and off, you got it.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. And if they want it changed, the company that developed Philips, they have a programmer that comes in for free and will reprogram the classroom to however you want it done. So.
Go ahead. Okay.
Programming, I'm thinking like a user interface, and I'm thinking of a teacher who's, you know, frustrated because the lights aren't working the way he or she thought, and it sounds like that's not possible. Or?
You know, there is an option to give the teacher the program on the phone. It's an app on the phone that she could program it herself, but.
Yeah, I don't think our teachers need any more things to do in the classroom. I'm just
100%,
saying.
I agree 100%. Yeah.
It's, so it's easy. It's not something that's gonna cause anyone any consternation.
No.
Is it gonna cause a teacher to have to make a phone call to a building level maintenance person and say, I don't know, this isn't working, that's not what I want?
Well, if it's not what she wants, she would email me and tell me, hey, can we talk about the tuning of the lighting? Okay. And then I could bring Gary in from Philips, and we could change it to whatever they want, whatever they're comfortable with.
Okay, so it's on a day-to-day basis. It's not gonna be an issue. It's gonna be a matter of that special, like, presentation setting.
Yeah.
On, off is simple.
Yes.
These other settings, okay.
Yes. And again, you have to remember, for those classrooms that are on the outside of the building and have daylight coming into them, they're automatically going to do everything. Teacher doesn't have to touch them. They may not even notice it dimming because as the daylight comes in and brightens the room, you know, again, the light fixtures are just going to automatically dim down, which again continues your energy savings.
So a few, I think it might have been at least one, if not two, Jess, you can correct me if I'm wrong, triple I's ago, we went to a presentation where they talked about indoor environmental quality, not just air, but environmental.
Yeah.
So I have just one kind of granular question. Do the light fixtures have an impact on the heat, the thermal comfort of the room?
No.
Okay.
No.
And then the other thing that struck me in that conference was the connections to better attendance, reduced behavior problems, impacts on special ed kids, and health, student and staff health. Do you know if, is
Yeah,
that?
you know, you could go back to the mid-90s, and there's data on the importance of the educational environment that include things like indoor air quality and lighting. And that's long before LED was even on the market. And so that continues to be the staple is what can we do, not just as board members and administration and facility people, to help improve that environment and keep it going, right? So this is just one more of those tools that we have in our toolbox that we can offer.
Okay, so that's consistent with your experience too?
Yes, yes.
Sorry, I got a couple. So I know in your example here, you said you didn't include the gym, the lunchroom, and the hallways.
Yes.
Was there a specific reason for that besides just looking at the educational environment?
No, I was trying to just make a basic example of the educational environments. I could have done the entire building. I have a count of the entire building, and could get those numbers to you if that's something that you're interested in.
I was just thinking, I mean, when you start talking about trying to cost save, you're going to try and cost save everywhere. And if you can have the lights turn off in the hallway when nobody's in there.
And they would.
Yeah.
They would. And they did that at Lincolnshire. But that's what you want. You know, when those areas are not occupied, why do they need to be lit?
Right.
And as soon as somebody steps into a sensor, and again, each fixture has a sensor on it, it's going to turn the entire hallway on at one time.
And then you mentioned that some people asked to have it turned down because it was too bright. Right?
Yes.
Is there an opportunity for maybe even further cost savings by eliminating some of these cans so that you don't have as many?
Yeah, I did that
Lights in a box?
at East Main School District. In their boardroom specifically, I was able to reduce the lights by almost half based on the illumination and the spill of the light in the space. So.
Okay, and then I just have one more. What's the projected life cycle of the LED lights versus the fluorescent tubes?
Well, like I said, in the ones that I did 12 years ago in Lincolnshire, I've never touched a fixture, never had to replace a driver or an LED light bar, never had to touch it.
Okay. That's all I got.
Can I jump back with one? So can we reflect this on our sustainability page on the website so people can, is there some way to communicate this to the residents and taxpayers? The savings that we would incur from replacing the light bulbs, the environmental impact, the impact on kids?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
First question, is it in the budget?
I was going to say, would we want to do that before we've made a commitment to it?
Yeah, I mean, what would it say?
Yeah.
Here's what we could be saving, but we're not?
Right.
Maybe not a good idea.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I mean, I think, you know,
Maybe
what
we
the,
should brag on it once we decide to do it, maybe.
certainly.
Yeah.
But I'm going to jump in for a moment. I appreciate that question. When Scott and Chris and I met, actually over, you know, a series of meetings and talked about how to present information to you, board, what we thought was, okay, we made a commitment that this year we would gather new information as to what the cost would be to add solar energy to the solar panels to the buildings that don't have them. So we were already ready to do that. Mr. Gonke, Scott Gonke, also had information to share regarding this, you know, this wonderful opportunity as well. So we thought, let's share that information together, right? So that the board can kind of weigh what direction we might want to go in, and also consider if the board is interested, has an appetite for investigating one of these projects further, how it would be funded. You know, you will hear, actually I believe at our next meeting, we'll be talking about capital improvements. And, you know, we already have a lot of projects planned. This is not on that list. So I think the board would have to figure out, you know, are you interested in both of these kinds of projects? Are you more interested in one than the other? And then, you know, how do we go about funding them, and how long would it take?
And what's the return on your investment?
Exactly. Well, it's all part of the conversation, for sure.
correct.
So this is kind of the first. We wanted you to have this information, and then we have to figure out where we go from here. Yeah,
Not now, but when you do that presentation, could you,
this was it.
was that?
This was that presentation. The 3
next
years.
one.
Got it.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, we just did it.
No, I know.
Yes.
Yeah, I first wouldn't want to publish anything on the sustainability. I was just asking if it was possible
Oh.
and if you were familiar with data,
Okay.
if we do move forward, that we could share on the sustainability page. My follow-up for you is just a heads up, I'm not asking for an answer right now,
Sure.
is why weren't these projects identified as capital projects? Like, they were just,
Sure.
I'm again not asking for
No,
an
no.
answer right now.
Well, I think we
but-
can answer that. Chris, can you talk about that?
Yeah,
I wasn't here.
Yeah, that's part of it.
The ComEd incentives have been around for several years, and our two previous directors were in direct conversations with ComEd, but they never got it to a position that it was able to be presented to you. The opportunity arose. Mr. Gunke reached out to Phillips. They put together the pilot, and they've delivered the costs for GMS, which we can extrapolate going forward. In terms of the kind of the funding, I'll just address that a little bit. We are going to be having a finance committee in August, where we will be having Liz Hennessy come and present some of those funding options as part of that $3 million, which is not part of the operating. At the same meeting, we will be having an update from Wald about that 3-year capital plan, the new 3-year plan, and kind of looking what there's going to be. As Dr. Glibman just said, these are not included in that, and both of us have been pretty clear when we were talking about this. We didn't talk about light bulbs once when we were talking with the community, but it is still part of the educational environment. So we do look at it as being the same conversation, but it was not something we explicitly talked with the community about when we were talking about the limiting rate.
Thank you, Mr. Gonke.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think there'll be opportunities to continue this conversation in August, right? Both at the Finance Committee meeting in some way, and also with that 3-year capital update. We can fold conversation into it. Okay.
Okay, that brings us to our board reports. Mr. Weedman, I'll start on your end this evening.
Nothing.
Mrs. Miller.
So first of all, thank you to Mr. Mack. I know you went to the Board President's Academy and recommended a weekly digest that we could subscribe to. I took you up on that, and it's been super helpful. So thank you for sharing that. So nice to not have to dig through everything. Yeah, really appreciate that. So just a kind of a report back on what I've been up to in the past several months, because I've been gone for a little bit. In May, I attended the Summit for Bilingual Parents, thank you, Dr. Diaz, and learned a lot about McKinney-Vento, which I know has been an interest and has come up in board conversations. This is the program run by the Department of Education, or law by the Department of Education, to protect our homeless students and make sure they have access to a free and appropriate education. So that was one really valuable experience for me. Highly recommend if you all have time or are interested. That summit was well worth it, and they gave out books for free, which was so nice. Another workshop I went to was by Carolina Fabian. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, and she presented the updates to the Illinois Family and Community Engagement Framework, and that described 3 pillars of their work and the innovation and creativity that's going on in that space, which was really fun to hear, given our work, Jess's and my work in community engagement. One of those is to create a pathway for global engagement, which mirrors our district's vision statement, which Dr. Glickman read earlier at the presentation of the plaque. So I thought that was pretty exciting. And that combination of experiences informs what's coming up in October. So I hope you will mark your calendars October 5th at noon. Not just you, everyone. Everyone. The subcommittee of the CEC is planning a program for families, all of our families, but we're really targeting families who have lived here to build relationships with families who have been here for more than 3 years, so it's pretty much everybody. And there's going to be food and fun at GMS's parking lot. Then the path to the library will have different community groups and organizations. I was just talking, I was glad to see our Miss Grace Lakes, because I'm hoping they will be there. But in a way that they can create an experience that's applied to SEL is what we're inviting them into. And then it ends and culminates at the library, which is our partner in this endeavor, where they are going to open up their doors and focus on what it takes to get a library card. So if you don't have one or you need to renew it or whatever, you can get one. They're a no-fine library, and if you get a library card at the Grace Lake Library, it works. You can get the Round Lake Library card at the Grace Lake Library, does that make sense? And use your card in both libraries. So there's some exciting stuff going on. And then we have an expert in SEL, Maureen McCabe, who will be doing a workshop in the library space, so that if you are not familiar with the library, or if you are, you can join and we can work together to figure out what we could do to build our capacity to engage socially and emotionally with more competency with our kids outside the classrooms, and really complement what's going on in the school. So that's October 5th at noon. That's it.
Okay, I just have one quick announcement. I reported last time about the Lake Division dinner coming up in the fall, and the structure of it being kind of a round table or a workshop type of environment with legislators. I don't think that that's actually going to be happening now. I think that that has become too much of a planning conundrum. But I do want to point out that they are going to be, the IASB is going to be sending out, from what I understand, a survey in the next couple months to survey Lake Division members about topics that they would like to talk to the legislators about. I think they're still going to be there. It's just going to be a little bit of a different format than I originally presented. So I know there's a lot of us that have a lot of different things that we would like to talk about with the legislators. So if you see a survey come along, please fill that out. As Lake Division members, that'll help them plan that this is for the fall meeting in October. That's all I have. Ms. Nash?
Thank you, Dr. Mack. Being as I was not in attendance for our last board meeting due to travel, I would be remiss if I didn't reflect back to our successful Juneteenth community event and just give proper kudos and thanks to those involved. Ms. Miller, you mentioned something about mirroring our mission in your statements, and I was like, that's exactly what the Juneteenth event did. It mirrored our mission, even though, we didn't intentionally set out for it to be that way. We empowered learners that walked through Central Park or along Central Park to hear facts about Juneteenth, its significance broadly, and also the local significance within our own community with regards to Portia Gages, hence Gages Lake, right? Key abolitionists for that time to really help the anti-slavery movement here in Lake County. We also had an Illinois Humanities Rhodes Scholar, come to talk to our community and further empowering learning, right? In terms of creating equity, there were so many different ways for the community to get engaged and involved. We had book displays, an art bus, sand art opportunities, a pop-up museum, amazing speaker, dance, song. I was really just inspired about how it continues to grow and becomes more expansive and inclusive year over year, and very equitable, right? Irrespective of age, demographic, ableism, it's really, really powerful to see our mission at work in other ways outside of like our schools, but within the broader community. And then in terms of cultivating community, we had not only our board members who leaned in there as fact holders. By the way, the fact signs this year were absolutely amazing, Mrs. Armstrong. Thank you so much. There were so many comments of who produced these, where did they come from? And so from a sustainability perspective, we will have them for years to come because they are solid and amazing. Thank you. But we had our board members represented there. We had our administrators and staff leaning in and supporting volunteering. Our village trustees, library trustees were there. Our state rep, as well as our state senator was present. So talk about community, right? In addition to other organizations like No Shame on You, there to talk about and provide mental health resources to the community. The Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority women of that organization, they're providing voter resources and engagement opportunities. In addition to like our local businesses, right? We had the Freeze leaning in, handing out, or not handing out, but promoting Juneteenth awareness through the Juneteenth cone. Something's Brewing leaned in with the Hibiscus Tea Week, the Beer Bazaar, which I hear was pretty cool on Wednesday. I'm looking forward to some photos, so please send them my way. But all in all, none of this is possible without the support of the Community Consolidated School District 46 board members, our administrators, as well as the staff that really lean in to make this possible for our community. So I just wanted to publicly thank you all for all that you did to make 2024 Juneteenth a celebration of a celebration of freedom walk, yet another success. So thank you all.
I don't have much. I just want to thank Sue and Leslie and other staff members who may have been involved for adding the brief board meeting summaries to the district newsletters. I am someone who liked reading those when they existed in the past, and I was glad to see them back because sometimes parents and community members are very busy, and just to be able to glance at that and see, oh, what were the top highlighted pieces of discussion at the last meeting, they can look at that and be informed. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn it over to Dr. Glickman for the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Well, we started our board time together tonight at 5 o'clock over in front of GMS, where we were cutting the ribbon with big giant scissors to celebrate the On This Land plaque that we were gifted from the Grays Lake Historical Society and the village. So thank you, board and administrators, for joining us for that. I'll also share that we are deep into planning for the 24-25 school year. Lots of hiring going on, and an enormous amount of PD, professional development, being planned. And with that, I'm actually going to hand the rest of the superintendent's report over to our team members. First, Amy Gluck, who will be talking about PD as well, professional development, and then on to Stephanie Diaz, and then to Heather Lorenzo.
Good evening. So I am going to share a little bit about some of our professional development that's been happening this summer, and then also some things that are still to come in the next month. So we still have a month left. We're not going to let it go faster than that. So we have been, and I want to start just by talking about the work that some of our instructional coaches have been doing, and they have come in on multiple occasions, not only to plan and prepare for things that are going to be happening in the upcoming school year, but also to plan and prepare some of the PD that's been happening this summer, and then also facilitate the PD this summer. So I just want to publicly thank them for that. They have been helping to facilitate some of the schedule PD that's been happening for our teachers and for grades 5-8. That includes both math and literacy, where they are meeting with teachers that are coming in to talk about what is that instructional block going to look like with the change in minutes that they will have in instruction, and what does instructional planning look like, what does engagement for students look like during that time, and really talking about, especially for those that are going to be a 70-minute block, how do we utilize a 70-minute block in order to most actively engage our students. In addition to that, around the schedule, they have been working on and providing some professional development around collaborative conversations between students, and how do you work to engage in that in your classroom? What do engagement structures look like in order to ensure that we have the most number of voices of our students speaking and engaged and actively participating within their lessons? They have been, we will have some coming up related to small group instruction. And then also for the teachers that are going to be on the AB block, what does that look like in terms of organization from the teacher lens? And then what does that mean for them as change as far as the school? So that is the school year. So that is all related to schedule. In addition to that, there's been a lot of job-alike work happening, so there have been teams coming in to work on assessments and instructional planning in the areas of literacy, math, STEM. We have some teams that are coming in still related to health, social studies, and some special education teachers coming in too. So a lot happening related to that job-alike work in some specific areas. And then in addition to that, we have just some trainings that happen every summer for some of our special education teachers with some of the resources that they use. And we had some teachers that had come for some schedule PD and asked us, they're changing content. And so they asked, could we have something where we're helping them to navigate the resources that we use in the digital platforms? So we've added that now as well that we'll be doing coming up in a couple weeks. So still lots happening, but a lot of professional development going on this summer. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Diaz.
Thank you. I have two brief things. One, I just wanted to give the annual update of a successful international recruitment. So we have 30 teachers who are coming from Spain. They will be here in between August 1st and August 4th. And they are joining 9 other VITs. And so what's really nice is we've been doing this for 8 years, and we have 2 teachers who've completed their 5-year tenure and 2 more who have signed on to complete their 5-year tenure. So it's been very nice, which is great. And then in addition, Ms. Miller, I wanted to open the board, basically what you said with McKinney Vento. So in September, on the first week of September, but I don't know the date, and I will let you know, the Newcomer Curriculum Council has its first meeting, and ISB is coming to talk very specifically about McKinney Vento and also migrant education. And so I will let all of you know, and if you want to attend, it's in the morning between 8 and 11. I'll give more details as we get closer, but it will be helpful to identify students and extra funding. Thank you. And now, Dr. Lorenzo.
Thank you, Dr. Diaz. I am just sharing out, as I do each year, that we have turned in our required annual RTO reduction plan to ISB for review and approval. As you likely remember, we are responsible to monitor the frequency that a student or the student body is engaging in the need for physical restraint or timeout. And we have to not only monitor that, but then make goals for improvement by seeking proactive measures and preventative training and work with our families via a reduction plan. And that has been updated and reviewed by the RTO committee, which also dual serves as our district threat assessment committee. And that has been submitted to ISB and will be posted as soon as they give us the thumbs up on our district website. That's all. Thank you.
Sorry. You're looking at me and I'm staring into space. And that is the end of the superintendent's report tonight.
All right, thank you, everybody. Okay, that moves us to our consent agenda. Just need a motion to approve the consent agenda this evening, which includes the personnel addendum that was sent to us earlier today.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay.
Nash,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
and Weedman.
Aye.
Okay, wonderful. Consent agenda approved. We do have 3 action items this evening. First item on the list is need a motion to approve the parent square that had been presented to us, the software, I believe it was, at a couple of the last meetings.
So moved.
Okay, any additional comments? Ms. Miller, yes, please.
Yeah, I have a question. In terms of the volunteer sign-up, and I'm looking at you because you said you had the answer. Can you talk to us about, does that generate any data that we could use about volunteer participation so that we could monitor all of the things that lead to cultivating community?
That is a great idea.
Okay.
I did check in, Amanda Pelster wasn't able to be with us this evening, but I appreciated, Christy, that you let me know you had an interest about that. So I checked in with Amanda about that. What she shared is that at this time, we're able to use that, it's kind of like almost like a portal, right? To collect names of people who are interested in volunteering, but that is all it does at this time. She did say that Parent Square is looking to eventually expand that, but at this time, that's what it does. Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. Weedman,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Albert.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Second action item is need a motion to approve policy 7:190 as we had discussed in a couple meetings as well.
I'll move.
I'll second.
I do want to
Yeah,
say a
go
few
ahead.
words about
Yes.
it. Okay. So first of all, as a reminder, board, this just a very, very slight change to the policy, and this grew out of the meetings that I had with our guardian staff advisory group. And the changes, although it's a large policy that deals with all of student discipline, these changes are very specific to electronics. And if you look at the language that's in the memo, you will see two changes. The one that is kind of the real intent of what we were changing is the addition of prohibiting wireless headphones on campus. And the reason for that, as I shared at the last meeting, is because our staff are seeing problems with students with headphones in, wireless headphones in, and their hair covering their ears, and staff not knowing that they are actually disengaged, right? You heard Amy Gluck talk a little bit about all the work that we're doing with our teachers to have them engaging with students, and we have to have the kids listening, right? They can't have wireless headphones in. We also took out language, and this may seem odd, it's about cell phones where it says using or possessing a cellular phone, ... is not allowed. We took out the language of possessing because we know children are coming to school with cell phones. So to say that they can't bring them onto campus just is putting a policy forward that nobody's going to follow. And we just weren't really interested in publishing a policy with a wink, wink. No, we know you're not going to follow it. So we wanted just to take possessing out, knowing, board, as we shared with you recently, that we have plans in place regarding what kids will do with their cell phones when they come onto campus, what our students will do, which at grades 5-8 is park them into these lockers and such in their classrooms. So the policy language should read, using a cellular phone, electronic signaling device, two-way radio, video recording device, wireless headphones, and/or telecommunication device, unless authorized and approved by the building principal. That's now. I also want to mention, as you scroll down and you look at the actual policy, regrettably in the policy, we did not take out the words or possessing. So I need kind of as a point of order from you, board, are you comfortable voting on it tonight, knowing that we intended to take or possessing out, or do you want us to bring it back to you next time? And it's a little complicated because the language of the policy needs to go into the student handbook, which we have to finish publishing soon. So if we can get it approved, we'd rather get it approved.
Can we approve with the motion that that would be strucken out.
I think you
As
probably
amended-
can do
as
it like
amended?
that.
Can we just
As amended, yes,
redo
as
the motion?
amended.
Redo the motion?
Yeah.
Or as, okay.
I just think as amended, and it the amendment should be, we're taking out, or possessing.
Okay.
That works, great.
You want me to rescind my motion?
Yeah,
My-
rescind the motion.
All right, I'll rescind my first motion.
The second goes away. Okay. I need a motion to approve policy 7:190 as amended, removing a particular reference to and possession.
I'll move.
I'll second.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and Nash.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Final action item is we need a motion to approve the revised Board of Education meeting calendar, and this was in reference to the two professional development opportunities we have as board members, both in the fall and the spring, to attend the Lake Division dinners and professional development pieces, so that's all that was. Need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any other comments?
So just a thought, it feels like there's a larger emphasis on trying to figure out monitoring criteria. And I remember when we had this discussion about moving to once-a-month meetings, I think it was my first year, we decided not to because we wanted the time together to work. So I just wanted to throw out, is it possible for us to keep the 2 meetings in October and still free up the night of the dinner so that we could do some sort of working board meeting where we could kind of hash out some of the monitoring criteria that we started to talk about at our board retreat?
If you're looking at me about calendar, I mean, I think board, I'd have to look at it, but I think you would have just 2 in a row. So one would be as you're describing, and one would be.
It would be 2 in a row and then the dinner.
And then the dinner.
There'd be 3 weeks in a row.
So it'd be
then.
3 weeks in a row, correct.
What night is maybe I missed.
It's the,
What
The
night is
23rd.
yeah.
So
Is
could
it-
we
It was
do
20.
October 2nd and October 16th? Because that would not be 2 in
October
a
2nd is
row.
what? Oh, yes, October 2nd is the evening of
Rosh Hashanah.
Rosh Hashanah.
Oh, gotcha, okay,
Yeah.
all right, okay.
Is there something special about October? Does it have to be October to do that? I mean, yeah, I mean, if we're gonna have 3 events in any month, it'd be either 2 board meetings and this other thing you're asking about, or it would be 1 board meeting, an ISB dinner, and this other thing. Do we have to decide that now? Can we spin up a special anytime,
Can you add a board meeting
Yeah.
anytime? Of
Yeah.
course,
We could,
absolutely.
non-calendared?
And you know what, I didn't realize October 2nd was Rosh Hashanah, so that's helpful to know. No, it doesn't have to be October, I just felt, I think one of the reasons we didn't want to go to to 1 meeting a month is because it makes that 1 meeting really long if we have closed or here late, so. But I think if it's Rosh Hashanah, it doesn't make sense to have 3 board meetings in
yeah,
a row.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
But maybe to Jason's point, we spin off a special if we feel that we need it during that time. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Albert,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye?
LaCroy,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye?
Nash,
Aye.
and Weedman.
Okay, we have no unfinished business for this evening. We do have 1 item under our new business, is the 24-25 miscellaneous and substitute wage rates.
Yes, Dr. Woke wasn't able to be here this evening, so I told him I'd speak on his behalf, board. So the last time that the board looked at miscellaneous and substitute wage rates was in the 21-22 school year. And so we're looking to update those rates at this time, really to make that, well, in some cases to bring them just equal to what was required by the contract, but in other cases to make them competitive. And so I'm going to focus right now on the substitute teacher rates because those were the ones that we were really working on to make competitive. I know Dr. Woke worked with surrounding school districts to look at what their rates are. and to kind of put us firmly, in the center of that. I will share that I would think it was maybe in May, I was walking through a school and was stopped by one of our wonderful substitutes who said, have you considered looking at your rates? Because here I'm making X, and when I go over into this other district, I'm making Y, and I really want to work here in Grays Lake District 46. So number one, it was really wonderful to hear someone talk about how they appreciated the environment and the students and the families and the staff that we have here. But also, yeah, we needed to look at those rates. So the substitute rates on a daily rate for 1 to 20 days would be going from what it currently has been is $115 a day to $125. And then if you're looking at the memo board, I'm going to ask you to skip down to where it says loyalty rate. That's beginning day 21. So we like to honor our substitutes when they've been with us for at least 20 days, that they are loyal to our school district, and so we want to increase their rate. Currently they are at 125, but it would bring their daily rate to 140. So to make it clear, anybody who's been with us at least 20 days would be getting a daily rate of 140. And then the long-term rate, so that's somebody who is after 20 days in the same position. They're currently at $210 a day. It would be up to $250 a day, and that's much more competitive with the school districts around us. So that's Dr. Wolk's recommendation, and I certainly agree with his recommendation. You can see there's some other increases as well, but that's the one that I wanted to pull out for you. Any questions?
What schools are we using for comparison? Are we using this? Is there a standard?
So we are, well, there's our standard list of schools, which I cannot rattle off for you, but.
Oh, yeah.
But it's the same groupings that we typically use when we are talking about bargaining for, right, it's all those same, right? So we're looking at schools that are, do you want to talk about this a little bit, sir? Yeah.
Yeah, we have 7 districts we use: Gurney, Zion, Woodland, and a few other ones that are all either similar demographic or geographically close to us. And we use them for, obviously, for peer districts, for average salaries and everything that we look at in terms of the contract. And I also use them in the budget book.
Now, it's certainly possible that there were some other districts that Dr. Wolk also used as he was creating this, because we know we lose people, we lose our substitutes to all kinds of school districts as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Topics for future agenda items is where we are at now.
All right. Our next meeting is August 14th, and I want to agree with my colleague, Amy Gluck, that there is a whole month left before we get there when we're getting close to the school year starting. Okay. But August 14th, we will start at 5 o'clock with a Finance Committee meeting. Mr. Wildman was already talking with you about how that'll be focused on our maintaining excellence efforts related to the work to come in our school district. We will have a presentation about our summer O&M project, so I believe Mr. Scott Gunke will be with us to do that. We'll do that 3-year capital update with a timeline, and wrapped into that, we will return to tonight's conversation about solar energy and LED lighting and seeing what we can do, talk about that. We'll have a staffing update from Dr. Wolk, because it'll be about a week before school starts, and we know you'll want to know how staffing is going. I will tell you right now, it's going very well. So that's what I have for August 14th. September 4th, the only thing I currently have on the list is tech summer projects. So Amanda Pelser will do, what Scott Gonke's going to do next time for O&M projects, she will do on September 4th for tech summer projects. I'm sure there'll be much more to come on that date, but that's the one item that I currently have. And then I also wanted to mention that on September 18th, we'll start at 5 o'clock with a policy committee meeting. we have gotten our most recent press policies. That's all I have at this time.
Can I ask something, especially when we start going down the rabbit hole of more solar? Can we get some data on our current solar systems that we have, as in where they're at efficiency-wise? What the cost savings so far per school has been for electricity? And then where we're at as far as having them fully paid off? So just the data that goes behind, because, we put those in quite a few years ago now. Is there giving us that return that we were kind of, not promised, but expected? Before we move forward with putting more up, if they're not as efficient and giving us that savings that we expected, is it worth putting more on the cost of the taxpayers?
So they do an annual update, which is what he was referencing earlier. So I could ask him, Performance Services, to give that information. And we can also look at some of the offset, which is what we've saved in energy in the last 6 months when they last presented. We can do that for you.
Yeah, and I know we talked at one point about it helps with the life cycle of the roofs, right? Because it deflects the solar rays onto the roofs and the grading and all that other stuff. Are we seeing that bear out as well? And that might be a little harder to tell, but those are some of the questions that I have to make sure that we're accurately. I do.
Are you asking if it's extending the life of the roof? Is that what?
Yeah, if it looks like it's bearing out.
Gotcha.
It may be hard
As
to tell, and you may not. The answer might be, I don't know. But
I recall that question being asked, and I think they anecdotally said that they do. It does extend it because there's just less wear and tear on the roof, but I don't know how they would be able to give it that as a metric in terms of, I don't know how they would do that. We can ask them though.
I'm also wondering, Chris, does it make sense to, because Performance Services did come and do their yearly review with us, perhaps we can just pull some of that data that we already have and include that when we're talking about our 3-year capital update and have that information to share. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we could. I think we should ask them to update it, which they've already done. They've already looking at. One of the things is that it's just we're not comparing apples with apples in terms of the solar. The SRECs have changed. There is a different level of rebate. So you just have to remember that when these were put in 2019, it was with the best intention versus what we're actually looking at right now.
right, but we did capture all those SRECs.
We did. The SRECs are for 5 years, and so we're just actually coming to the end of that right now.
Yeah, so we did capture everything that they told us we were going to capture.
Correct.
And so there's still I'm trying to say this without putting my foot in my mouth here.
I think what you're looking for. I think you've asked me for this before. Break-even analysis about where we become kind of like break-even, and I think when I was looking at it roughly about a year ago, it was a range of between 14 and 18 years, which is what he referenced. But it's also dependent on current electricity prices, which were an estimate back in 2019. But we had COVID, which immediately followed, which had an effect on energy prices at the time, usage, the buildings were closed for a year. So there's a lot of other things that we have to take into consideration when we're looking at what was basically an estimate of an assumption of 4 solar arrays at 4 buildings back in 2017, 18, and when they were actually fully installed in 2019. That's and I wasn't here, I'm just trying to give you my best.
In theory, the COVID year probably should have helped us because we were using them less and they were producing all year long.
Correct, right.
In theory.
But energy prices were not going up based on what they estimated, so. But yes, I can, it's a very long way of saying, yes, we can take the previous information that was delivered by Kurt. I can ask him to update it, and you can look at that in juxtaposition with the 3 new building initiatives that we looked at today.
Yeah, to me, it goes with the monitoring that we're talking about,
Right.
making sure the
And that
initiative that we did is working. That's all I had, sorry.
So I had, I'm just wondering if we can get some sort of better understanding of Title I and Title IX funding. Is that possible at a future meeting?
It is. It is, absolutely. So, can you be a little more specific as to what your, what information you're looking for?
Sure.
So we can find out if the board wants us to present that information.
I'm just curious about kind of the history of it. What does it cover? How much money comes into our district for what's the difference between Title I and Title IX? And essentially a big net into how does it impact kids' education and what would happen if it went away?
Okay, so what I'm hearing is a request for how we're using the federal grants that we receive, right, for the education of children? Okay, that is something that we can do. Board, is that something, do you want us to add that? We can add that to August 14th. We can add it to September 4th.
Can I help?
Yeah.
Maybe we could present it with the budget. I'm doing the budget presentation.
What's the date of that?
That'll be in September.
Do you know if you're gonna do it in the 4th or the 18th?
I think it's the 18th. I could give slides because we're doing the hearing
We
anyway.
can,
Would that be a good time to talk about our federal funding?
sure, okay. So, adding budget on September 18th?
I guess what I'm trying to say is I could have slides about our
Yeah,
federal
we can do
funding
that.
as part of
Sure.
the hearing,
Sure.
rather than a specific.
Does that kind of meet what you're hoping for?
Yes, please.
Perfect. Okay, great. Anything else coming up looking for?
I am just thinking ahead to the conference in November and how usually we need to discuss as a board the proposed resolutions, I think is what they're called. And I think we may want to consider talking about them in late September, so we're not
Sure.
rushing and have only one meeting to talk about them in October and making that meeting really long.
Sure. So add that
So-
to September 18th, does that sound?
Yeah.
Okay,
if that-
you got it.
Will the resolutions be up by then?
I think they're usually out by August. End of August, I think. Okay. I'm looking at Tamika because she guided us through that process last year.
Well,
so.
I'll put it on, you know, if it's not, if we don't have them, we don't have them, but sounds good.
Okay. We have no further public comments this evening. We don't have a closed session unless anybody wants one. And we can move forward with adjournment. So I need a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting, please.
So moved?
Second?
Okay.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Albert,
Aye.
and Weedman.
Aye.
Have a good night.